Hello everyone out there, how are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel, and today we have a pretty awesome update surrounding some of the gameplay details of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So today's update and topic is actually extremely exciting because it happens to be surrounding one of the biggest pain points that a lot of people and fans have had around Tears of the Kingdom, because it relates to arguably the biggest mystery about the game. What is happening with Hyrule? What does the map and the land of Hyrule look like? And how does it compare specifically to the Hyrule map from Breath of the Wild? In fact, on my channel alone, in just the past few months, I've made several videos and brought it up in several conversations that even though I'm extremely excited for this game and I know it's going to deliver, I also understand why so many people have this question around the map of Hyrule in Tears of the Kingdom. I actually have the same question. Now, my personal stance has been, I'm extremely excited for the sky element, and I think that that's going to be such a game changer that it won't really matter what's happening with Hyrule. But on top of that, I've kind of just believed that Nintendo knows that they need to change up the map of Hyrule in order to make it feel like a true worthy successor sequel to the incredible Breath of the Wild back in 2017. And I don't really want to spend too much time going deeper into the $70 price tag part of this whole mess because everyone's been talking about it. I've made a couple of videos on this topic as well. We all know the situation around it, but when you consider the fact that Nintendo is choosing to charge $70 for the first time ever, at least in the Switch era, for one of their games, it's like, yeah, you better have made that map significantly different to really help justify that $70 price in the minds of a lot of people. It's not really my personal concern, but I understand the $70 concern for other folks. And so yeah, you gotta do some updates and changes. You can't carbon copy that same map, put it into another game, and then still charge $70 for the first time. And so here is the really exciting update around what Nintendo and specifically IG Aonuma actually said about the map and the world of Hyrule in Tears of the Kingdom. This was actually, as far as I know, first noticed by someone on Twitter named Genki, who actually shared this and their interpretation of the quote. And what actually happened was IG Aonuma was accepting the most anticipated game of the year during the Famitsu Game Awards, and he actually had this quote about everyone anticipating Tears of the Kingdom. In the previous title, Breath of the Wild, you were able to experience a new world of Zelda with the freedom to go wherever and do whatever you want. In the sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, furthermore, the player's free imagination will be filled with new gameplay that will bring about changes to the game world. I think that everyone who voted will feel pleasantly surprised, and I hope you can enjoy the unknown Hyrule as you like. So again, this was clearly translated from Japanese into English. And so there's a lot of interesting things to take away from this quote, and I think it's mostly exciting from the conversations I've seen from some other fellow YouTubers and people online. This is being received very positively because it does kind of feel like a roundabout way for IG Aonuma to confirm that this game will feel different, hopefully very different, from Breath of the Wild and the Hyrule map that we experienced in that game. Now, to revisit the two most important things he actually says in this quote that kinds of leads us down this path to a confirmation of a new world to explore, he says, players' free imagination will be filled with the new gameplay that will bring about changes to the game world. Okay, big stuff. New gameplay, bringing changes to the game world. Very important stuff being said there. And then he said, I hope you will enjoy the unknown Hyrule as you like. So he's talking about changes to the game world, and he's talking about an unknown Hyrule. This to me clearly represents two things. One is the sky. I will always and forever, in every video about this game until we finally play it, come back to the sky and remind everyone how massively significant the inclusion of the sky and everything these trailers have shown us is to this game, and it will make this game feel so wildly different from what Breath of the Wild was. And I think that even when he talks about the, quote, unknown Hyrule, I think that the unknown Hyrule could be both Hyrule below and the sky above. And then, of course, there's the idea of maybe the underground and caverns beneath the surface of Hyrule and caves maybe beneath Hyrule Castle and all that stuff that might be happening there. So you've got the possibility of a different Hyrule map, tons of stuff to do in the sky, potentially some caves and caverns beneath the surface of Hyrule. there's a lot of stuff going on. And when I hear unknown Hyrule, that's kind of what I think about. I think about the stuff underneath the ground, and I think about the sky. And to focus back to the changes to the game world, I think that it's really important to consider that phrase when you look at the video clips we've seen of the sky, right? Because I think gameplay that will bring about changes to the game world probably has to do with the general conceit of the story. Something is going to happen to Zelda, something is going to happen to Link that gives him this gauntlet new power thing that he wears on his arm. We've seen evidence that whatever these new powers are that he has in this game will allow him to potentially move about the world in unique ways, and we've even seen him moving the world around in weird ways, like moving things like boulders and rocks and elevator things that seem to lift up to the sky. Obviously, this could also be talking about these vehicles that we've seen that are ground-based vehicles and flying things, and this could very much feature into the gameplay and maybe these new powers that Link has. And if this gives him the ability to drive around the surface of Hyrule, as well as fly across the sky and maybe dig underneath the surface into some caves, then yeah, we're going to be changing the world that we play in and changing the way we play through it. So the gameplay could be changing the game world in that way. It could also be changing the game world because maybe Link has powers that allows him to, almost as if he's coming across shrines or new dungeons and temples, maybe he can use this power at a specific, like, I don't know, a statue or something found somewhere in the world of Hyrule, that when he activates this thing, maybe this is when things literally change and stuff gets lifted out of the ground of Hyrule and placed into the sky almost as if they're puzzles. We've seen Link's ability to turn into a water drop and vertically travel through rocks above him into the sky. We've seen a lot of floating islands that seem to be vertical and kind of almost as if they're a puzzle that's going higher and higher into the sky. And so what if Link is activating these things from the ground, because we've seen beams of light below these things that almost showed that they were shot up into the sky from Hyrule? And he might be the one doing that, changing the terrain of Hyrule, finding things in Hyrule that weren't in Breath of the Wild, throwing new pieces of land into the sky that becomes puzzles and things he's trying to solve while floating above the ground. I mean, I think that's a huge element to the game potentially. And what Aonuma says when he says new gameplay that will bring about changes to the game world, I think that's what he means. And then coming back one final time to the unknown Hyrule element, I know I'm kind of staggering and jumping back and forth between these two quotes, but they kind of feed into each other, and there's just so much to potentially think about and fill in the gaps and read between the lines and use our imagination to fill in the secrets he's hinting at but not actually telling us, right? And so the unknown Hyrule, like I said, that could be the sky above and it could be the caves below, but I also think it could just be actually Hyrule. The actual ground and the map. And I think that all of these things we've been talking about for months now shows us that maybe the actual topography of the map will change in some way. And it could be because of the new flying mechanics and all that stuff. It could be, and I've mentioned this in a video recently as well, it could be the passage of time. Maybe the passage of time has changed the layout of lakes and mountains and cliffs and the architecture, buildings, and the inhabitants of people who could be living on Hyrule. Maybe some of the towns have moved or changed around. If it's been a significant amount of time since Breath of the Wild ended, there could be towns that we knew of in the last game that have been completely destroyed, and then different towns might have been built and resurrected in totally different areas of the map where there previously was not a town. And of course, with all of this, could come new NPCs and new characters and new inhabitants of the world. And so all this really comes down to is, it feels like the first time we've had something significant from Nintendo. And in this case, it's Aonuma, the producer and director of most of the biggest Zelda games and of Tears of the Kingdom, telling us with his words that there is gameplay that is going to change the game world. There is an unknown element to Hyrule. There are clearly different things happening in this map. And these quotes to me is basically Nintendo and Aonuma confirming that the map we knew from Breath of the Wild is not the same in Tears of the Kingdom, and whether we're flying, whether we're digging, whether we're driving, everything we're going to experience will be significantly different from the last game. And as somebody who is just over the moon excited for Tears of the Kingdom, I take this as the greatest news possible.